God damn, that's a huge ass can. Australia. The land down under. A land filled with cute, cuddly marsupials that'll probably rip your fucking face off. The birthplace of such people like Russell Crowe, Hugh Jackman, Mel Gibson, Margot Robbie, and the legendary crocodile hunter Steve Irwin. It is also a land that has the best gun laws in the Western world because the Second Amendment's for fucking pussies. But there is one moment in Australia's history that a lot of Australians don't seem comfortable talking about. In fact, it's pretty embarrassing. It is quite embarrassing because this event in Australia's history is so wacky, so crazy, and so ridiculous. It has become a meme to a lot of the history community on YouTube. I'm gonna piss off a lot of my Australian friends.
Do you want to fucking finish me off, mate?
The Great Emu War.
We shall fight with growing confidence and growing strength in the air. We shall defend our island, whatever the cost may be.
Hey everybody, this is Atticus the Death Meller, and welcome to the second episode of the Death Metal Historian. Happy Australia Day to all my friends and my subscribers from down under. I hope all of you guys are having fun, drinking some Fosters, having some stereotypical shrimp on the barbie, but most importantly to all of you guys, I hope that all of you are staying safe from the crazy ass bushfires that are going on as of right now. So at the end of the video, I will talk more about the bushfires, but yes. The Great Emu War. I am well aware that such YouTube channels like Simple History, Salmonella, and Oversimplified have made topics onto this event, but for the sake of this series, The Death Metal Historian, I wanted to cover this because it is so fucking over the top and so hilarious that it's just, you would believe it was all fiction, but it actually did happen in Australia. So, let us continue on and begin this topic that is the Great Emu War. And for effect to all my Australian friends, all the music I am playing are from all the Australian bands that I really do love. So let us begin. Now to get a broader understanding on how the Great Emu War began, let us start at the very beginning, at the end of World War I. November 11th, 1918. The German Empire finally surrendered, ending the Great War. For compensation for their service in World War I, veterans of the British Empire as well as ANZAC, abbreviation for Australian and New Zealand Army Corps, were given plots of land by the government. There, the former soldiers would start a new way of life in farming. But everything would change drastically for the farmers and their families on October 24th, 1929. The stock market crashed. The Great Depression begun. Now we all know how really fucked up the Great Depression was. Unemployment, poverty, Dust Bowl, the rise of Nazi Germany, Spanish Civil War, we all get that. But the Australian farmers were quite hit hard from the Depression, and most decided to move close to cities in hopes of finding limited jobs that they can find. But those who stayed were in for a rude awakening, because that was when the emus arrived.
Ladies and gentlemen, there's a slug in this gun. Now, you gotta take my word for it, but there's a slug in this gun.
If there is something you must know about emus, is that emus tend to migrate down to Western Australia for the coast and inland regions after their breeding season. Over an estimated 20,000 emus were amazed to see not only there were human settlements, but there were farms filled with a fuck ton of wheat. When the Depression started, the farmers were encouraged to increase their wheat production. So the emus saw this as a huge ass golden corral of golden wheat. So without hesitation, mobs of emus broke through the crops and ate everything. Everything! The farmers were understandably fucking furious. Something had to be done. Drastically. Farmers related their concerns about the birds ravaging their crops, and a deputation of ex-soldiers were to be sent to meet with the Minister of Defense at the time, Sir George Pierce. Having served in World War I, the farmers were well aware of the effectiveness of machine guns, and they requested their deployment. The minister readily agreed, although with conditions attached. The guns were to be used by the military personnel troop transport was to be financed by the Western Australian government, and the farmers would provide food, accommodation, and payment for the ammunition. Military involvement was due to begin in October 1932. The war was conducted under the command of Major G.P.W. Meredith, with Meredith commanding soldiers Sergeant S. McMurray and Gunner J. O'Halloran, armed with 2 Lewis machine guns and 10,000 rounds of ammunition. Now, someone who has played Battlefield, I will indeed say, Lewis machine guns are pretty fucking awesome. It was a hell of a LMG. It was used in both World Wars, Korea, Vietnam, all the way over to the Troubles and other conflicts of the 20th century. So, thinking that 3 blokes, 2 of them armed with Lewis guns, that this was going to be an easy task, right? Turns out, emus are pretty fucking goddamn tough to kill. First off, emus can run up to over 40 miles per hour. Secondly, despite them being Dollar Tree ostriches, they're pretty fucking durable. Basically, feathered tanks in which Meredith would later quote, "If we had a military division with the bullet-carrying capacity of these birds, it would face any army in the world. They can face machine guns with the invulnerability of tanks." Oh my... oh my God. Oh my God. And third, despite the contrary belief, these birds actually have guerrilla tactics. They start in a big mob. For those of you curious why I say mob all the time, a big flock of emus is called a mob. And as soon as they sense danger, they break up into little mobs and scatter in every direction. So, seeing all that going around while you're trying to shoot and mow down every emu with your Lewis machine gun, knowing that most of these emus are pretty fucking durable birds and they're moving in all directions, this was gonna be a problem. To make sure that they were showing off proof to the country that they were tackling the situation, a cinematographer from Fox Movie Tone was hired to gather the footage of the operation. The operation was delayed, however, by a period of rainfall that caused the emus to scatter over a wider area. The rain ceased by November 2nd in 1932. As the birds were out of range of the guns, the local settlers attempted to herd the emus into an ambush, but the birds split into small groups and ran, so they were difficult to target. While the first full assay from the machine guns was ineffective due to the range, a second round of gunfire was able to kill a number of birds. A number. Not a whole mob, but a number. I just wanted you to know that. Later the same day, a small flock was encountered and perhaps a dozen birds were killed. The next significant event was on November 4th, 1932. Meredith had established an ambush near a local dam and more than 1,000 emus were spotted, heading towards their position. This time, the gunners waited until the birds were in close proximity before opening fire. And right when they were about to open fire, their guns jammed. They jammed! And after only 12 birds were killed, the remainder scattered before any more could be shot. No more birds were sighted that day. You just imagine the machine gunners just ready to go gung-ho on these emus, only to have your guns jam. That's just embarrassing. At one stage, Meredith even went so far as to mount one of the Lewis guns on a truck. So basically a technical. So you would think that this was a pretty clever idea, just driving over onto mobs of emus and just hosing them down with their emus. Actually, it backfired really quickly. Turns out, as the truck was unable to gain on the birds and the ride was so rough that the gunner was unable to fire any shots. By November 8th, 1932, 6 days after the first engagement, 2,500 rounds of ammunition had been fired. The number of birds killed is uncertain. One account estimates that it was over 50 birds, but the other accounts range from 200 to 500, the latter figure being provided by the settlers. After the withdrawal of the military, the emus still ravaged the farmers' crops. The farmers obviously were pretty fucking agitated and urged the government to still continue the culling of emus. James Mitchell, the Premier of Western Australia, lent his strong support to renewal of the military assistance. At the same time, a report from the base commander was issued that indicated 300 emus had been killed in the initial operation. Meredith was once again placed in the field due to the apparent lack of experienced machine gunners in the state. Taken to the field in the 13th of November 1932, the military found a degree of success over the first few days, with approximately 40 emus killed. The third day, November the 15th of 1932, proved to be far less successful, but by December 2nd, 1932, the soldiers were killing approximately 100 emus per week. Meredith was recalled on December 10th, and his report claims that over 986 kills with 9,860 rounds at a rate of exactly 10 rounds per confirmed kill. In addition, Meredith claimed 2,500 wounded birds had died as a result of their injuries that they had sustained. But still, a very large portion of the emu population was still alive and breathing. And thus, the Australians decided to actually surrender for real this time. Despite the problems encountered with the coal, the farmers of the region once again requested military assistance in 1934, 1943, and 1948, only to be turned down by the government. Instead, the bounty system that had been instigated in 1923 was continued, and this proved to be effective. 57,034 bounties were claimed over a 6-month period in 1934. By December of 1932, word of the Emu War had spread, reaching the British Empire. Some conservationists there protested the cull as extermination of the rare emu. Dominic Severity and Herbert Whittle, the eminent Australian ornithologist, described the war as an attempt at the mass destruction of the birds. Ultimately, what actually was the big result of the Emu War was exclusion barrier fencing. It proved to actually be a better alternative rather than going out of your way shooting up emus with a Lewis gun, and also prevented other animals like dingoes and rabbits. The legacy of the Great Emu War has become quite an interesting as well as a hilarious legacy in Australia's history. Australians consider the emu a pest even though it's their national bird. And today in 2020, emus also were proven to be a delicious bird too, where it has become part of the country's culinary culture. But to Yanks like me, it's just a hilarious meme as well as a counter argument. So every time that Australians say, "Oh, you still wait till after mass shooting," I just reply, "Didn't you lose a war against emus?" I'm just fucking around. So, what did you guys think about the Great Emu War? Did you think it was crazy? Did you think it was interesting? Or do you think it was just amazing meme material? Leave it down in the comments below. And again, just like with my Jonestown episode, leave down some recommendations for an upcoming death metal historian episode on the comments below. Now, I've already got a list going on, but if you guys send me some ideas, it would be really appreciated. Also, you can just mention it to me on my Discord server down in the description below. So there's that. Now, I mentioned the Australian bushfires early on to this video, but I just want to make it well known that I'm leaving down some links on the description below on how you can help out the firefighters, the families, and all the animals that are suffering from these bushfires, including the emus. You have to save the fucking emus. You gotta do it, people. So I'm leaving down all these links on the description below that you can donate, help out the firefighters, do what you can, because it's really fucked up, and I really hate seeing all this shit on my news feed. And I'm just really hoping that a lot of my Australian viewers, as well as my friends from down under, especially Take Shot Action, are doing okay. So do what you can, donate as much as you can, help out everyone down under. So that's it. Without further ado, ladies and gents, I am Atticus the Death Metaler. Hope you liked this video. Subscribe to my channel. Links are down in the description below. Keep metal and have an excellent and blessed day, y'all.